Alexander, let's talk about the series of concerts, which I know are called Symphonic Soundscapes. Give us a flavour of the kinds of soundscapes that you're going to be performing.
So the soundscapes that we're going to be exploring are the soundscapes of Sibelius and Prokofiev. And the reason behind this is twofold. So firstly, as we move into 2017, we're moving into the 100th anniversary of both the founding of Finland as we know it today, 100 years, and then of the Bolshevik Revolution, so the October Revolution. So two seismic events in the history of those countries. And both of these composers lived right across that seismic event. They are also, in and of themselves, fascinating composers to look at in parallel, because as we reach the end of the 19th century, the symphony has in a sense had its time. People are starting to look towards the tone poem, programmatic music is starting to come to the fore. And of course there's the continuation of the symphonic tradition with Mahler, but Sibelius with his 7 symphonies takes the symphony to a very different place. And I wanted to look at that journey between the First Symphony and the 7th Symphony, where Mahler is in a sense expanding. Sibelius is distilling down until we get to this 7th Symphony. I mean, it's not quite as simple as that, but ultimately that journey to the 7th Symphony is an extraordinary one. And he created his own oeuvre there, a really important symphonic oeuvre that ended in the 20th century, as did Prokofiev. He picks up with his classical symphony, but he couldn't have thought of it more perfectly, the First Symphony, the classical symphony, and then he goes on his journey, also of 7 symphonies. So that's the soundscape we're looking at.
Let's look ahead to January with both of you in that case, when you, Alexander, will be conducting, you, Chloe, will be performing the violin. Just take us through what the audience can expect on that particular occasion.
In this concert, we're looking at Prokofiev for the first time in the series and his symphonic output. We begin with his classical symphony, which, as one would imagine, is in a very classical form, and then we jump to his third, in which you hear his far more distinctive voice. I mean, already in the classical symphony, there are distinct elements of Prokofiev, but in the third, he spreads his wings. And of course, the fabulous Sibelius violin concerto with Chloe, which I'm looking forward to tremendously.
Likewise.
Talk us through the challenges that poses the violinist, Chloe.
I love performing the Sibelius. It's such a wonderful piece. It has so much variety in terms of emotions, in terms of colour, dynamics, and it's just a wonderful piece to play. The last movement is sort of notorious, I think, in a way for being quite technically challenging at times, but I just really enjoy playing it. It's just so much fun to play it. So yeah.
Alexander talked about what those two composers, Prokofiev and Sibelius, mean to him. What do they mean to you, Chloe?
Well, I have to say that they are actually two of my favourite composers, and Prokofiev has always been a long-time favourite of mine, ever since I was tiny, and I love performing both of his violin concerti. Sibelius, again, is very, very special to me. I've been to Finland many, many times, and it's the way you can sort of picture Finland within his music, I think, for me, which is so wonderfully special.
It's technically very demanding.
It can be. That's where a lot of practice comes in, hopefully. No, I've been playing the concerto now for certainly over 10 years and probably closer to 15. And just every time I come back to it, I find something new within it. And yeah, the last movement is just this amazing culmination of the whole piece.
And as both composers lived through the year of 1917, do you see an almost immediate change in the music that emerges afterwards compared with before?
No,
it's more gradual.
It's more gradual, and of course the Prokofiev and Sibelius reacted different ways. I mean, Sibelius was taken as a sort of iconic figure by his country. The Second Symphony, which is in the first program of the festival, was written actually 10 years earlier, in fact almost 17 years earlier. But already then, this was during a period of Russification of Finland. The Finns said, that's an iconic work, it stands for Finnish independence. And he was in a sense appropriated throughout his life for Finnish ends, and why not? I mean, it's a great icon. Prokofiev had a different experience. He he left Russia, he went to the USA, only to come back again, and at first to be supported by the Stalinist regime, and then at the end to be censored by the Stalinist regime, dying on the same day as Stalin, of course. So they had different journeys, and these seismic events, because of course it was all in the context of World War I as well, these seismic events couldn't help but affect the people around them. But it's one of the things that I find fascinating in music, is how these events, and if these events do affect people.
I was going to say, because as you perform, the communication of that journey is, I know, a very important thing to get
Exactly.
across.
So particularly with this idea of a series or a festival, I think it's nice for our audience to hear from me from the stage prior to each concert, and sometimes during the concerts, a little bit about how the works hang together that they're hearing that evening, but also the broader context of the festival, why we picked certain works. What I'll try and do is talk through those links and connections and try and place it in the context of history for people.